The Secrets of Movies and TV Shows is brought to you by the StarQuest Production Network and is made possible by our many generous patrons. If you'd like to support the podcast, please visit sqpn.com/give. You're listening to The Secrets of Movies and TV Shows. Hi, I'm Dom Bettinelli, and you're listening to The Secrets of Avengers Endgame, where we discuss the hidden layers and deeper meanings of this mega movie. Joining me today on the panel are Andrew Hermiz. Hello, Andrew.
Hi, Dom. How's it going?
Very good. And Mike Denz. Hello, Mike.
Dom, I love you 3000.
Oh,
well, I was going to start with Avengers Assemble! Podcasters Assemble!
Yeah.
So before we get into this, I want to remind folks who are listening to write a review, if you could. Write a review of the podcast at Apple Podcasts or at whatever directory you get your podcast from, and share the podcast with your friends. Help us grow the community of listeners. We have such a great community of folks who are listening to these podcasts, joining in the community. It only gets better when there are more of you, and it helps us continue the podcast. If the audience grows, we do more of these, and so it's just a 1-to-1 on that. So if you could, we greatly appreciate that. So just to take a step back and look, if you're thinking, haven't you guys talked about Avengers Endgame already? Yes, we did. We did a year ago when it came out. Father Chip Hines and I did a coffee and cinema of this movie as we came out. Of the mega movie that we watched, and we talked about our first impressions. But it's such a huge movie, there was no way we could possibly contain all the possible thoughts about it. So we're back. We've had some time to digest.
But we'll do that now.
But we'll do that, yes. So it's been 10 years, 23 movies, 50 total hours of film, which is good because that's how long this movie was, or at least it seemed like it at times. It was actually 3 hours runtime. And it was all in the service of almost a single story. 50 hours of film. That's like a whole TV series, like an entire 5-season TV series these days. Just an incredible achievement. Just on its own in filmmaking. I don't think has anything ever like this. Anything like this ever been done before? Do you guys know?
no.
I mean, no. I mean, you look at the Star Wars and.
Right.
You know, the huge, but it's not all one. There's so many different storylines there. But this is this group of people that had their own little movies and their Avenger movies. And the funny thing is like you said, 50 hours. I don't think 1 hour of that was bad. It wasn't like, that was not good.
Dark World, but that's a whole other podcast.
No. I will fight you on that one, but that's not the movie we're talking about today.
That's another entertaining podcast that we'll have. There some are better than others. Let's put it that way.
Yes, but they hit them out of the park more than not.
Yeah. So let's talk about this movie. I mean, the other ones will come into it as we go, and we certainly can't cover every single bit of this movie in one episode of the podcast. So we'll do our best to cover the high points as we can. But just the movie itself, it's 3 hours long. And as I watched it again, I kind of got the idea. I realized each hour is one act. It's basically a movie in 3 movements. You have the first act, gather the survivors. The second act, gather the stones. The third act, defeat Thanos. And then you can have, like, some people might say, oh, there's a fourth act of the post-battle, but really that's more of just the coda. It's the wrap-up, you know.
An epilogue.
It's an epilogue. But it's these 3 big movements in this story. And I've heard some people say that first part went on too long. What do you think? Did the first part of gather the survivors, did that get the gang back together again? Was that too much, given that we just had Infinity War, the year before? What do you think?
When did it, like, are you talking about like into the 5 years and they got everybody back together?
Right.
You're not just talking about when they killed Thanos.
No.
Alert.
Like everything all the way up to when they get the plan to time travel. Like everything up to that.
No, I'm a person who likes the build up. I don't like getting right into it. Like an example would be the last Star Wars movie. It's the latest example of we're just going to get right to the action. You know, the Return of Skywalker was just boom, as opposed to a Jaws movie or the first Hulk movie. You didn't see Hulk for a long time. I like the buildup. I like the anticipation. Right. So actually, when they first got to Thanos' planet so fast, when I first saw it, I was like, wow, this is going too quick. But then I realized what they were doing. I actually made a joke when they faded out. I'm like, well, that was a short movie. But, that was just the epilogue. It was just a prelogue or whatever. Right. So, I liked it.
Okay.
Yeah, I thought it was very necessary because you had such a shocking and devastating ending in Infinity War. You needed to have time to show the devastation, right. Yeah, I mean, a big portion of that first hour is showing everyone just like reeling from the ramifications, and then that 5-year gap, and then and coming back to them, it's showing like, okay, these are people that have lived this tragedy for a while now.
Yeah,
and showing those shots of New York that are just in desolation, and showing how each surviving member is kind of coping and seeing where they are. I think you really needed that to really let the weight of what Thanos did at the end of Infinity War to really catch on. If like you said, Mike, if it was like Rise of Skywalker and we just jumped into the action, it'll be like you wouldn't have felt those deaths at all. I mean, we know this is a comic book movie. We know where this is going. We know like there's going to be some sort of solution. So to at least to feel the emotions of that, we have to let it breathe in, let it sink in.
Yeah, you had Captain America reduced to leading group therapy.
Yeah, exactly.
That is a good point, by the way, which is this movie. If there's a theme in this movie, it's that there are consequences. There are that we're not going to just fix everything. Like a lot of comic book movies, a lot of science fiction movies, whatever, and especially with TV shows, like you have all these bad things happen, but by the end of the episode or the end of the movie, we've neatly wrapped things up again, and we're back where we started at the beginning. We have all of our favorites, even those we thought were dead, they're really back now. And no, this movie shows, in these two movies really, shows that there are consequences that people have to live with, that there's pain, that there's suffering, and that makes sacrifice all the more. And in some ways, I felt like some of the sacrifices in this movie were lessened for me. They didn't have the impact they should have because I spent my time going, yeah, but like most movies, they'll be back by the end. You know what I mean? And and that didn't happen. And I kind of feel a little cheated that I didn't get to feel that pain in the moment. Not like in we keep comparing to Star Wars, but they're both epics. Not like spoilers in Force Awakens when Han gets it in the gut. I felt that moment hard, and that made that movie what it was for me. And I wish I could have felt that more here. But it's fascinating, that idea, this sense of consequence. Mm-hmm. One of the other main themes in this is, I'm not trying to make a direct analogy, but big stories, and this is a mythic story, a big mythic story, connect to certain truths, certain human truths, certain supernatural truths that just by nature, because they have to, because we're human beings, and we have the natural law written on our hearts. And one of the truths that you have in this is the big story here is the man of iron, the man of strength, who sacrifices everything to defeat death and bring back those who were thought to be permanently lost, to give them life again. That is, if that's not a Christian message, I don't know what is. It's an Easter message. That is the story of Christ, but it's also this movie. Now, Robert Downey Jr. is not Jesus. Tony Stark isn't Jesus.
He's got the beard.
He's got the hippie beard. But I thought that was an important theme in this movie, was that Christ-like image that he has here. He's come a long way, Tony Stark has, from the original Iron Man.
Yes, he has, and this movie. I mean, if you were to take Infinity War, that's Thanos' movie, right? If you were going to pick one leading character, that's Thanos' movie, and that's his story and his arc. And again, in Endgame, I felt that, even though it's more, Endgame's very much like a ensemble, but you're seeing the end of Tony's story that started with the first Iron Man. And a prevailing theme with him too, that he mentions a lot in almost every Marvel film that he's in, is he seems to mention, like, I should be dead, like I should have died. Right. And he's referring to the first Iron Man film, when he was captured in the desert. That theme, bleeds through here, and you see his struggle, obviously with now his family still being alive after the events of Infinity War. He wants to hold on to that, but as Pepper Potts mentions, like, will you be able to rest knowing that you could have done something? So his Infinity War, I felt like Thor was kind of put up as the messianic figure, because he was the one in that movie just doing everything he could and sacrificing his life to build Stormbreaker and face Thanos face to face, because Thor literally, he's called the God Man, literally. Right. But he fails, and then Tony picks up that mantle in this film and ultimately makes that sacrifice.
Yeah, Tony's motivation throughout all of the movies so far, it has been, I've got to put a suit of armor around the world, especially after what he sees in Avengers, the first Avengers, and the threat that the world is under.
Yeah, and Ultron, yeah.
Yes, and he wants to put a suit of armor around the world, and that becomes his motivation until this movie, where now he has something more personal. It's save his child or save the world or do both. And that's really what motivates Tony. At first he thinks it's one or the other. If he saves the world, he has to change time and give up his child. But then he realizes, no, I can have both. And frankly, I give her a better world if I save it. And that's really big deal, I think, in this. The father figure of in several cases, fatherhood is a big theme in this.
And he puts himself last, as you're saying, like for his daughter and everyone else. In the final reconciliation scene between him and Captain America, where he shows up and I figured it out, and here's your shield back, and he says, we're gonna reverse everyone, bring everyone back. We're not gonna touch the last 5 years, right? We're gonna leave that alone. And if I could live through this,
right?
And it's like the last one, which like if we could throw that in, but that's not going to happen. But it wasn't really a deal breaker for him.
Yes,
like if I could, but the other two have to happen.
Yeah, I remember I watched Ultron last week actually, and in preparation, and there's that scene at the beginning where Scarlet Witch and her brother Quicksilver, they give Tony this vision of his ultimate fears, and in his ultimate, he basically comes out and says, "My biggest fear is that I would be alive and everyone else would be dead." Like the one thing he didn't want was for him to be alive and everyone else to be dead. He would rather be the one who is dead and everyone else live. And talk about that's 4 years before that movie came out. That was a deep cut. They laid the groundwork for this sacrifice probably back in 2008. Never mind in 2015. So. Big message in this, that self-sacrifice. His death was inevitable, both as a move to selflessness and as an end to the chapter that he started. His death was earned after granting him the perfect retirement life. He earned that life of retirement, that beautiful cottage by the lake with his wife and his daughter. He earned that. He had that. And then he went back. Like, I got this much, but the world needs to take this in, because I need to sacrifice this. So, big deal.
Yeah, and for the whole time in his story, he was trying to redeem himself because he was the warmonger, sold all these weapons and everything, and he had to, he had anything to sacrifice. He was really trying to make up for what he had done. But now, as you said, with what he had gained with his wife and his daughter and now he had something to lose. Now
Right.
he really, had become something, worthwhile with his life. Now this was a real sacrifice.
And let's not forget the other father figure moment in Tony Stark's life, which is the loss of Spider-Man, of Peter Parker. I mean, he had created a real foster father relationship with him. He'd taken him under his wing, and he felt that loss keenly. And I think, like a parent pulled in between two different children, I've got to take something away from he had to take something away from his daughter, which is him being there for her in order to save the other one who is like his own son. And there's that tug of war in him, which it's the movement of love. I mean, that love is what saved it. So fascinating.
Yeah, culminated with that final hug.
Yeah.
Where Spider-Man goes, "Oh, this is nice.
This is nice."
Yeah.
So that was so cute and sweet. Yeah. Oh, we're doing this now. Which was going back to Spider-Man, when he thought Tony was giving him a hug goodbye, and he was just opening the door for him.
Opening the door.
Yeah, that was good. But it is the hero's journey, or as Tony says, the hero's gig. Part of the journey is coming to the end, and that's what he does. He goes on the hero's journey. I want to come back to the ending of the movie in a bit, but I want to cover some other things. How about that opening? That first scene takes us back to the moments just before the snap, where we see Hawkeye. I can never remember their real names, but Clint. Yeah. So Hawkeye is with his family, his daughter, his sons. They're on the farm. He's got the ankle bracelet because he's because of the Avengers run lockdown after Sokovia, and in that moment, it's this beautiful pastoral familial moment, and he turns around and we see the dust in the air, the ashes floating away from his daughter, and he's calling for them, and it's such a heart-wrenching moment because we know what happened and he doesn't yet. And you feel that pain again. And it's a brilliant filmmaking move because it brings us right back to the end of Infinity War without having to show us that scene again. They show us the same thing, but from a different point of view.
And also answers a question: what happened to Hawkeye? Everyone, he was the one Avenger not there,
right?
In the Infinity War. So what happened to him? And so it answered that question right away and brought us right back into that emotional moment.
Yeah, and also was the perfect, origin story for him becoming Ronin, because, your whole family disappearing, before you. I mean, and knowing what this guy's capable of, that's a motivating factor to just, be on a path of, just death and destruction, as Ronin. So it was like you said, it was a brilliant cold open, right. Before any of the credits came on, the opening Marvel credits. This was the first Marvel film to do that. So I thought it was a smart move, again, to, like you said, show what's going on with Hawkeye, and when you see him again as Ronin in Tokyo, you understand why he's doing what he's doing.
Imagine the guilt he carried. Like, maybe if I had been there in Wakanda at the battle, I could have turned the tide. If just one more of us were there, I could have saved my family. And so I can imagine that's the guilt he carried with him. And they don't bash us over the head with that. They don't have him go on this long exposition to Nat, if only, we just have to kind of pick that up as we go. So I love that his arc through this movie, right to, what's the name of that planet?
Vormir,
right, where the Soul Stone was. And that moment, which we can get to in a bit, because I want to talk about the different sacrifices we've got in this movie. But first I want to talk about the death of Thanos right at the beginning. You mentioned that, Mike. Right up front, they go and they find Thanos and they go there and they're like, "It's time to give us the stones back." And we're like, "Well, that was quick, shorter than I expected it to be." That wrapped up nicely, like that Simpsons episode. Well, that seemed to wrap up faster than we usually do.
There's going to be a long credit scene. Geez.
But it subverts our expectations. Our expectation is, okay, this movie is going to be 3 hours of them chasing down Thanos to get the stones back. And nope, right up front, boom, no stones, no Thanos, it's done. And I remember sitting there going, what's the rest of the movie going to be about? Like, are we getting any of these people back? I mean, these people are in movies. There's a Spider-Man coming out later this summer. How are they doing this? So it was like, what do you think of that moment, that subversion of our expectations?
It was great because, again, Infinity War being, Thanos' film, it really secured his victory. I mean, that Thanos won. I mean, he won. And the Thanos that they end up defeating is not the same Thanos. So it emphasizes, his victory. And it also emphasizes that they can lose. The Avengers can lose. They've lost some battles here and there, but they always ultimately are victorious, in some manner. But with this, it's like, wow, the losses felt even more, and the hopelessness, sinks in even more, because like you said, it's like, oh, well, what are we doing now? It's like after that happens, and also it's good because it's like they were chasing Thanos throughout all of Infinity War, so why to do that again would have been repetitive.
Yep.
And you wouldn't have had obviously the time travel angle and getting to revisit the older films and kind of wrap it up. I think that helps wrap up the story too, that we got to actually revisit, a lot of the set pieces from the other films. So it was a good story choice.
And it was not only was it not a satisfying opening scene because they didn't get the stones, but Thanos was just a shell of himself. He was living like, I don't know, some retired hobbit, picking these things, and he was making something to eat. It's just like, what, this guy was like a god who just could defeat any of the Avengers, easily. And now he's just sitting there. And so when Thor killed him, it was just, so what? Too little, too late. And it just, if they were intending you to feel very hollow with that victory, you did. It was just not good at all.
And it shows you how powerful to actually just wield the stones, like how powerful you have to be to survive that. And the fact that it almost killed Thanos, especially when you use it a second time, that really shows you like, okay, if Tony Stark had to do it at the end, you knew that was gonna, that was gonna kill him. So it made that sacrifice even more. He knew Tony knew what he was getting into when he realized what he had to do.
Of anyone, Tony is really the most normal in human ability. I mean, Steve Rogers is, superhuman. Like everybody's. I mean, maybe Black Widow, but she wasn't at the final battle. So, but of anybody who was at the final battle, he was probably the most normal human, and yet he had to be the one to do it. So the light goes out of Thor's eyes. You can see it. Thor is like the audience. He's like he dies inside at that moment, and he goes off. We'll come back to Thor because you cannot miss Fat Thor. Nope. So, but I want to tell you what you mentioned. Steve Rogers leading a support group for survivors. I mean, they all go off and do something, and it's interesting to see how they all cope with this new world they're living in. And Steve, you can hear Steve telling the survivors, you got to move on from this. You gotta put this in the past and rebuild your life. But the fact is Steve doesn't move on. Steve stays with it, which is how we end up defeating it. It's because he doesn't move on. And then Nat she's obsessively running the old Avengers, and so it's very interesting to see how they each deal with it. She is not doing well at it. I mean, that's very clear. She's suffering a lot in her losses. So it's really interesting to see how they're kind of coping.
Yeah. Steve has a great line that's really symbolic of what's happening at that moment in the movie. He's like, if we don't move on, then Thanos might as well have killed all of us.
Right.
And it kind of is like they did, because nobody's moving on and they're all just a shell of themselves. Yeah.
And then he after that support group scene, he goes to see Nat and he admits like, I'm telling everyone else to move on, but we can't, because like we have to figure something out. And because if we don't, then all those lives lost, so, we're for naught. And it's great to see like Nat becoming, adding like an emotional, like she's become like, she was like a big part of the emotional core of the film because, her character, when we first meet her, she's like very cold, really not emotional at all. She's just like very textbook, what's the mission? But, as we've gotten to know her and as, obviously we'll get to her, her tragic scene at Boromir, it also, allows us to feel that sacrifice a lot more because, she, with her devastation, we're relating to that, like you said, and we're feeling that with her. And then when, you see the end of her character, it's felt even more greatly.
And then she has a redemption arc too, like Tony, where she was, came from a not such a good background and not very proud of who she was. And then as she was talking to Steve, to Captain America, explaining how, I discovered a family and became, somebody, and she was trying to hang on to that, by keeping the Avengers going, but it wasn't working.
And then let's next talk about the most important character in all of the MCU, the linchpin on which everything depends, the rat that walked across the dashboard of the van.
Yes,
if not for that rat.
That is the God moment. That is where God says, I'm just going to have a rat walk across this, and make sure that everyone else can.
Right. Because when the rat walks across the dashboard, it steps on the button that brings Ant-Man back from the quantum realm. And that's what sets us forward on the ability to then save the universe from Thanos. So
and you know what? There could have been a lot of rats walking all over that thing for a long time. It took 5 years, so we'll give them that. We got to give them that. Yeah, it was one rat. Button.
Yeah, it was that rat.
I'd like to think that when in Infinity War, when Doctor Strange was looking at all the different possibilities, he was just looking for that rat. Throughout the 14 million possibilities, however many he was going through, he's like, okay, we gotta. This is the one.
That one's got the rat
in the right place. Yeah.
Okay, and Tony. All right.
I just got to give away the stone. All right, this should work.
It is not easy being Doctor Strange. Let's just say that.
No.
So, we talk about we talked a little bit about Ant-Man here. He's got kind of a comedic role here. He's sort of a MacGuffin, or you know what I mean. He brings the ability to go back in time to them, but doesn't play a huge part. He's a lot of Paul Rudd does a good job at the comedy relief, and that's fine. That's a good role for him to play in this. Ant-Man has never been a major superhero in any of this anyway, so it's fine. But although that moment when he goes back to his house after not even knowing he's been gone 5 years, like what happened, and seeing his daughter 5 years older. Man, that's again. This is a movie that a lot of themes of fatherhood and in their fathers and their children. It just over and over again. It's fascinating to me. So let's talk about. I want to come back to Captain America again, but not yet. I want to talk about Professor Hulk. Very if you're not a comic book fan, this was confusing because I was like, "What's going on here? This is weird to me." So Andrew, what's going on with Professor Hulk?
So with Professor Hulk, it's basically like how he explains it in the film. He took the best aspects of Hulk, and then the best aspects of Dr. Banner, and just molded them together, and so he could not have to fight back and forth between because we see like in Thor Ragnarok, we ultimately see like he's been when he was Hulk for. I think it was like 2 years. He, once Dr. Banner came back, he's like, I had no control over that guy, and I barely even remember what happened. The way he explained it in Thor and Thor Ragnarok is like it's like the Hulk was driving and Banner was in the trunk, locked up.
Right.
Yeah, and then when he came out of that, obviously he was having like this huge crisis and all that, and I think after those events, he ultimately. Decided that he can't wrestle with these two whatever sides of himself internally anymore because it was gonna destroy him. He at the end of Thor Ragnarok, he came to the conclusion that he wanted to come back and rejoin the team because you remember the reason why he was there is because he left for the safety of the whole world basically after the events of Ultron. he pieced out, and this was his solution. And it's when we first see him, it's one of the funniest scenes in the whole film, especially the back and forth with Paul Rudd taking the picture with the kids and them not knowing that he's Ant-Man or caring that he's Ant-Man. It was great.
And meanwhile, Captain America's sitting right there.
Yeah, I know. Captain America is probably the more recognizable one. But, the funny thing is we haven't seen the Hulk, since he lost to Thanos in the opening of the movie. Before Loki was killed, Hulk got scared. Hulk was actually shamed into going into exile. And the beginning of this movie, Bruce still has to wear the Hulk killer, that suit.
Hulkbuster. Yeah.
The Hulkbuster, to when they go and get Thanos. So we really, and maybe you can fill us in on this. When did he convince the Hulk to come back a little bit? Like, when was it because Thanos was gone or what? Because we don't really see when Bruce did that.
Yeah, he mentions in that scene in the diner, he said he spent 18 months in a gamma, in a gamma thing, and whatever you called it, I forget what he calls it, but
right.
But I think like you said, he made that decision probably after the events of Infinity War, and then he was probably working on it. Probably started thinking about it like when they went to see Thanos the first time when he got killed, and then obviously it took a long time for it to actually come to fruition. So
that would be an interesting story, how that happened. Eventually. I mean, besides spending time in the gamma and everything.
So it's interesting that I've heard some people say that by doing this, he actually put them at a disadvantage, that Bruce did, because, the Professor Hulk, the Bruce as half Hulk, was less effective in that final battle than he should have been had he just been Raging Hulk. He would have been nearly a match for Thanos. And in fact, that was the problem in Infinity War, is Hulk was scared of Thanos and wouldn't come out. But he would have been a match, which dramatically they had to do, because he would have beat Thanos into the ground, and that would have been the end of the movie, I suppose. But it sort of handicaps him. So, and we see a little of that. They kind of hint at that when they go back to the time, 2012, to the time of the original Avengers movie, where, okay, now go pretend to be Hulk and go down the street. Rawr! And he kind of punches the car a little bit. It was a very funny scene.
Well, I don't know how effective he would have been, because he did lose to Thanos that first time. So, I mean, would a Hulk been able? It was difficult because, the Hulk is always supposed to grow stronger the harder things become. Him and Thor always kind of, as the two strongest, kind of butted heads in that first movie and stuff. Right. It would have been interesting to see if in round 2 Hulk could have taken Thanos.
Is he permanently maimed? That arm?
Oh, I think so.
No, it should regenerate. I think it should regenerate.
Or maybe. Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, that's a good question.
Because it's the stones, so who knows? Could be anything.
Yeah,
that's true.
Yeah, the stones last for a long time. Oh, that's a different stone.
Like, would Keith Richards regenerate is the question. Keith Richards is Thanos. He survived the snap. So let's talk about the nature of time travel in this movie. I love the fourth wall breaking that they do with War Machine and Hulk and was it Ant-Man? Yeah, where they're talking about, so we're going to change time, right? And it's like, why? And then they go like, well, because every Star Trek movie, every Back to the Future, like, are you citing movies to me for why? Hot Tub Time Machine. That was great.
Yeah, and he's like, so you're trying to tell me that Back to the Future was like total bogus? I mean, he was so, it was like our whole reference point for how we're going to save the world is what happens in movies.
And so,
which is an homage to the fact that they're in a movie.
Right, exactly. But I thought it was interesting, that choice to make it we're creating branching time. We can't change time. We can only branch time. So it's essentially a multiverse, or parallel universes. And so they're going to change this. They're going to bring people back in this timeline by getting the stones from a different timeline and then returning them so that you don't mess up those timelines.
Right.
Yeah.
which is interesting. So you can't change time. You can't actually go back in time on your own time. You can only go sideways in time. I don't know. I hate time travel, trying to figure it out because my brain hurts.
That you don't reverse it. You just keep going forward, and whatever the past is for you, the past is for you. It allowed things like for Nebula to kill herself, and a lot of other stuff that happened that you're like, well, wait a minute, now the stone is, and it worked. It was great because they did point out like all the other movies kind of followed this rule, were going in a different direction, and it allowed them for not to repeat the same old, okay, don't like meet yourself, that'll be bad, and be careful not to talk to anybody and all that kind of stuff. You don't have to worry about that.
No, Captain America got to kick his own butt. And admire it at the same time.
And admire it.
That was great.
I can do this all day. Yes, I know you can.
I know.
My own catchphrase.
Bucky's still alive.
What? That is America's butt, he says.
Yeah.
There's a lot of good humor in this one, that's for sure.
It even allows the whole end scene. I know, not to get to it too early, but with, Captain America going back and it doesn't affect anything. He could live the end of his life out with Peggy.
Right.
Yeah, I thought the rules that they established were great because they didn't spend too much time like with exposition explaining it. It was like very straightforward. It was like, I think Hulk basically explained it. It's like, yeah, your past, if you travel to, the past that's
your future.
That's your future. And then your present now will be your past. It's like you're just going. Yeah, it's one straight line, and
yes,
and to make sure that line holds, you have to put the stones back. So I thought it was great, and like you mentioned, all those for all those other scenes to pay off, all those character endings to pay off, you needed these rules to be in place. So yeah, I thought it was you could time travel is very messy, and not a lot of films do it right, but I thought they did a great job with it.
They didn't simply wave their hand at it. It was they had to work at it, but yet it didn't become all about the gimmick of the time travel. That wasn't the solution in that sense. The time travel itself, they had to do more than just travel in time.
Yeah, like when War Machine is like, why don't we just go back and find baby Thanos and hold it? Oh, gosh, dude.
Dark, man. That's real dark. So, let's talk about Doctor Strange's big gamble. I mean, this is the biggest of all. He basically gave from in the end of Infinity War, he gave Thanos the key to kill. He gambled half of the universe's lives, trillions of people's lives, on the slimmest of chances, because he said the other option was no chance. Basically, from his point of view, he saw all the possibilities. And this was the one. And yet he knew it all came down to Tony had to be willing to kill him, to sacrifice himself. He knew that from the beginning, right? It's pretty clear.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, he saw that. And obviously he saw that trying to hang on to the stone was futile.
Yeah.
Right.
Because none of those ever worked out. So obviously Thanos always got the stone anyway.
Yes.
Yeah. And this is the end game. I mean, it's the title of the film. He knew this was the only chance that humanity had to win, and again when he sees Tony later on in the film, he's like, yeah, if I tell you what was supposed to happen, it might not happen, So he was still banking on Tony making that decision, and he knew, without having to reveal it to him.
And right at the end, there's that moment between Doctor Strange and Iron Man, where Doctor Strange he puts his finger up. It just says like one. This is the one chance. And Tony knew exactly what he meant. Like the one chance we have is me willing to make the sacrifice. And that was it. That he's a superhero. I mean, that's what by definition, he made the sacrifice.
Talk about how chilling that was. I mean, being in the theater and seeing that scene for the first time, it was, if you remember, like when he puts that finger up, it's the music kind of settles and it's like just one faint violin string. The tension just building up. It gave me goosebumps. I mean, and obviously everything that happened after that, and it was like, I know we'll get into the last, the final battle and the aftermath, but that was just brilliant filmmaking from the score and
who was the composer?
Alan Silvestri, I believe. I think he composed all the Avenger films.
It was really well done. I mean, the music really helped a lot.
Yes,
absolutely.
Yes, it was. Yeah. Yes, it is Alan Silvestri, by the way. I want to. Okay, let's talk about everyone's favorite Fat Thor.
Yes.
What a journey that Thor goes on. He essentially has become the Big Lebowski.
Yeah, no, exactly.
Quite literally.
Especially with the beer when he's back in the headquarters and he's walking. I'm like, oh gosh, that's totally.
He's got the sunglasses, the bathrobe.
Like, that wasn't. That was on purpose. Yeah.
Tony calls him that at one point.
Yeah.
A Lebowski, and it's interesting. I mean, that is. Here you have the God of Thunder, the king of Asgard now that Odin's gone. He has fallen apart. He no longer has Mjolnir. His symbol of literally his right hand. His symbol of his power. Everything has fallen apart for him, and he's now menacing the preteens in Fortnite.
Dude Master,
which was so awesome. I'll come to your basement, you little tweet. I am the God of Thunder.
and it really is wrapped like he puts it beautifully when he's explaining where the ether came from, and then he goes into a little story about, there's Jane, we used to date, and all these different things, and then he realizes that's all falling apart, and he's realizing where he's at. And the best thing for all us guys who don't have a physique, like the actor who's
Chris Hemsworth.
Chris Hemsworth.
Very few people
it was kind of like, now we're going to show him with his shirt off with a big pot belly and boobs. I mean, he's nothing like himself. And it's like, finally, no more gratuitous, we're going to show him with his shirt off. Now it's, look at the pot belly. Yeah. Thank you very much.
And they committed. He was like that till the end of the film. I mean, till the very end. So that was great. And the marketing too for the film was great because they did not reveal that at all. If you remember all the trailers, they did show Thor in all those scenes, but it was normal, physique Chris Hemsworth, that they CGI'd in just for the trailers.
Was it CGI'd in? I mean, or did they just pick shots that were either before they killed Thanos at the beginning and maybe like shoulder up headshots?
No, they showed there were plenty of scenes in the trailers where they showed full body Thor and when he was supposed to be fat,
funny.
So it was CGI'd. I watched a little I've seen a few behind the scenes things about the trailers, and they showed how they did that.
or maybe the potbelly was CGI and they just showed him without. I don't know, but I don't know if that was
that was a fat suit.
No, he wore it. It was a prosthetic.
Yeah. Okay,
that was a prosthetic.
Very well done prosthetic. Then
the truth can be told, I was the model for the prosthetic for Chris Hemsworth. That's right.
I was the stunt double.
I was Chris Hemsworth's stunt double. Took a lot of training.
We sacrificed a lot, for the cause.
I was happy to see Taika Waititi's character, the Rock guy, there again. I just love that character. It's so funny.
Getting back to Fat Thor. And the whole idea behind it. I think Thor more than anyone is like the character that always needs to be fed like this humble pie. It's like yep, you're the God of Thunder, but like in Ragnarok, like. But your sister's more powerful than you, and there's nothing you can do about it, and we're gonna pluck your eye out, and Asgard's gonna get destroyed, and then Loki's you lose your father, then you lose your brother, and then you lose half of the Asgardian population. It's like he's like all this is like weighing on him, and ultimately it's also teaching him that as much as powerful as he is, he is not like the ultimate God. He is, might be a God, but he's not, he's not that all powerful building.
To quote Steve Rogers.
Exactly. There's only one God. He's not.
Yep, exactly. I love that. And then also it shows like obviously one of the best scenes of the film when Steve Rogers is also worthy of the hammer, and he's like,
I was going to mention that.
Yeah, exactly. I know we'll get to that, but it also pays that off too. It's like he doesn't have to do it alone. Like in Infinity War, he thought he was the only one that could take Thanos on. And in this one, it's like he needed the whole team, and he needed everyone to play that part.
What's he say at the end to Valkyrie? I have to be who I am, not who others want me to be. Something along those lines.
Yeah,
like I have to stop being this image of who Thor is and just be who I am. And that's why you're going to be Queen of Asgard, King of Asgard, whatever you want to call it. And I'm going off with the Asgardians of the Galaxy. Which was a fun scene. I like that. The I'm in charge. Of course you're in charge. Of course you're in charge. Of course you are. So condescending. Everybody knows who's in charge. I love Thor. I mean, just finally when they paired him up with the director like Taika Waititi and Ragnarok, it was perfect.
It really was.
So let's talk about the absence of Captain Marvel. So the movie Captain Marvel was filmed after this. In fact, this was Captain Marvel's first scenes were in this movie, not filmed. You were in this movie, although it came out a month before Endgame. But she is so powerful. Again, you had to make her absent for most of the movie, for most of the action, or she's just overpowered for Thanos. I think that's, but yeah, she shows up and she takes down the ship. So she comes at a key moment. So she gets to show her power, but she's not the solution, which I thought was interesting. It has to be the normal guy, Tony.
Yes. And I thought they handled it well. Like the why she was missing for most of the film was a good reason. It's like there are other planets out there that need help, and her being one of the only cosmic beings, and how powerful she is. She kind of makes up all the power of the Avengers combined almost. So she can go out there and help out at other planets. So it was a good it didn't just seem like an excuse. Like it was actually like it made sense. And she obviously came in at the right time.
To me, she seemed like the cheat character or the godlike character in video games. I'm going to be one of the first games that I ever played a while back is the original Star Wars Battlegrounds, and one of the cheats that you could discover was a killer Ewok. If you type in Simon Says, you get a killer Ewok he has his own shield. He can blow up buildings easily. And that's what she reminded me of. Like, well, we can't have her there, or we don't need anybody else.
Right.
So and you, like you said, it wasn't just. It was a good reason, And she said, and these other planets don't have you guys.
Yes.
So you guys take care of Earth, and I got to go other places.
We also have in this movie, we have the redemption of Nebula. A character. She's such a minor character, and in Guardians of the Galaxy, the first one, she's just a sidekick bad guy almost. She's not even really all that important. And the Volume 2, she kind of gets into her own a little bit. But here, she really becomes a hero. She steps up, and something in her changes, and whether it's the sacrifice of her sister in Infinity War, or seeing the Guardians up close and spending that time with Tony Stark playing tabletop football, which was awesome.
That was so great. He was the only one who could have a funny scene with Nebula.
Yes,
and Nebula is played by such a beautiful actress that you would never know unless you told who she is from Doctor Who. Is amazing, and she does a great job. Always she talking in the Batman voice and everything. Pretty dark.
Yeah, her story arc is she's come a long way. Like you mentioned, and her being the other daughter of Thanos, it was great to see get her perspective. Her being one of the I would say one of the main characters of Endgame, and
yes,
Gamora was more of the highlight in Infinity War, and then we saw obviously her tragic end, but we do get a new Gamora in this one. But yes, the way they handled Nebula's character, and how she's grown, is just another example of again the 23 films all together and all the different storylines and character developments. It's like you can't get that. You really can't have that, and that's what makes this film so unique. It's this film, I like to call it just one big payoff. Like it just pays everything off like so beautifully, so perfectly, and there's nothing like it.
I thought both films did a really good job of an ensemble cast, where it wasn't just like, we're just going to have somebody show up and their theme will play and we'll have them do some amazing CGI effects or something, and then we're going to move on to the next person. It wasn't, that's what I was expecting when I first saw Infinity War, and I'm like, wow, as depressing as this movie is, it was really well done. I've seen so many huge ensemble casts where they tried to do it, you know, and most recently, you know, the Justice League, you know, it's hard to do and it's often badly done. Yeah. And they did a really great job. I just have a question. What did you guys think of how they used her to inform Thanos of what was going on with her, you know, with her basically uploading, all of her thoughts were uploaded into one server or something, and they could
being
get
on the same network, essentially.
The network. Yeah.
What do you think, Andrew? I'll let you go first.
I mean, I thought it was fine. I mean, I didn't think like it was, you know, I don't think it was one of those things where it was like, oh, that's a little too convenient. Like maybe at first I did, but you know, it kind of made sense. And you know, it's just like one of those parts of the film, and you know, a lot of these type of events happened, you know, especially in Infinity War leading up to this, where it's like, man, we cannot catch a break. Like it seems like, you know, Thanos, you know, is always like one step ahead of the, you know, the curve, and even on accident, like this kind of just fell into his lap, you know, this whole network issue.
Like he was inevitable, like he said.
Yeah. Exactly. Yeah. You know what? It's like, man, will they ever like, and it's like, and she was just about to, you know, jump back. It was like 3, 2, 1. And then her, you know, her thing, you know, her
Squidward accessed her network. Yeah.
Yeah. You know, it was like, damn, like the timing of it. Yeah. You know, it's like cinematic in that way where it's like at the very last moment, you know, that kind of happened.
Sure.
But I thought that was an interesting way to handle that.
It didn't bother me. I thought it was just like, oh, they accounted for everything and they didn't account for that. They just, nobody maybe even knew that was possible. Right. And it was kind of like, now this is going to be a problem. And so it didn't feel like a device to me. It felt like they will put our heroes in a tree and throw rocks at them. This is what they were doing. You're like, oh no, now this is going to be even harder. It was hard enough. What did you think, Don?
I thought at the time that it was like a little convenient, but it was like you said, it was necessary because you had to get Thanos at the final battle. They can't just have them gather the stones, go back to 2019 or actually 2023, whatever it is they're supposed to be, and snap their fingers and be fixed. You just couldn't do that. You had to have them fight Thanos, and the only way to do that, since he's dead at the beginning of this movie, is to find another Thanos. And so I think it's a neat solution to that problem, which is just like they went back and found the stones in the past, they also found their enemy as well, and he came with the stones. The stones and Thanos are undeniably connected in the story.
It also emphasizes how messed up Thanos was to make her daughter into a machine like that. It's like, you know, like obviously Gamora's not hooked up to any network, you know, so it just again shows like how, you know, how she was treated and how like she just was made to be a machine and she didn't want to be that anymore.
Yeah, I thought that it was a device of, we're going to make this even harder, because it could have been just, how hard is it going to be for them to get back, have Thor or have the Hulk snap his fingers, and is this going to work? But we're not going to just do that. We're going to have Thanos show up in his ship and bomb the crap out of the base, and this is going to get a lot harder than it was supposed to be. So for me, I was buying into it. I didn't remove myself from the fantasy of the movie and go, oh, wait a minute, come on. I was in there. I was in the whole way.
Let's talk about that final battle. And the big thing I want to talk about is that moment when Captain America picks up Mjolnir and wields it for the first time. And like there was that moment in Age of Ultron when they were all sitting around at the party, you know, everyone's trying to pick up Mjolnir and Thor is all smug about it, like no one is worthy, until he sees Steve grabs it and and it moves just the tiniest bit, and he gets that worried look on his face, which I just thought was awesome. And, and it was just the subtlest worried look that no one else would notice. And then, oh yeah, hey, it's all right. and this is the moment where, with like you said, Thor gets to say, "I knew it. I knew he was worthy. He could wield it."
And my daughter, before she saw that, I was telling the guys before we started this podcast that my daughter is a lifelong diehard MCU fan, and she believes that Steve was moving it and then saw Thor like worried and decided, I'm not going to do this to him, and just didn't pick it up because it would have just been too embarrassing. And that's just the kind of guy Steve is. Yeah,
I've heard that theory floated around. That would be interesting if that was the case.
I'll buy that. Just that Steve is humble enough that he wouldn't have just picked it up and swung it around.
And then there was no, I get the big one. You take this one.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, they swab him back. That was great. And I love the fact that they put the hammer back. They give it back to the Thor they took it from because they know how much it means to him. Like when Fat Thor takes it from Asgard, I can imagine the Thor from that Asgard is going, "Hey, where'd that go? Where's Mjolnir?"
Yeah, he really, that timeline is going to be different.
Yeah. Well, hopefully got it back just then when the moment that it left. But yes, then
he did. Steve did take the hammer with him. You're right.
Yes,
yeah. So
he brought it back.
All right.
At the end, so he probably gave it back to him. But that scene in particular, it kicked off in my opinion, and for me, the greatest cinematic experience of my life. Like being in a theater, when he gets that hammer, because everyone's anticipating that hammer is just going to go into Thor's hands, and then it waves past him, and then it goes into Steve's. Then the roar of the crowd.
Our crowd. It was a touchdown.
Unbelievable.
Yeah,
it was unbelievable. It was From then until to the snap, the Tony snap, it was the best cinematic experience of my life.
Right. It in some ways it reminds me of that scene in Force Awakens when it's Kylo Ren trying to pull Anakin Skywalker to him, and instead it goes past him to Rey. I mean, that was a similar thing, that's not quite. We didn't build up 23 movies to that, but it was still a good experience. But I don't say like that moment, like Steve is the hero. I mean, what he went through in Civil War and in Winter Soldier, and and all the junk that he went through, and including in these two movies, this is his moment. This is, you would have thought that if anyone is going to be the self-sacrificing hero, it would be Captain America, but in this case it's Iron Man. But he gets his moment here too, and that's this one here. What before we get to the after the battle stuff? Anything else about the battle itself you want to highlight?
Obviously, I mean when the ones who were brought back came through the portals.
Yes, that was a big moment.
That was, that's part of that cinematic. If you thought Steve getting the hammer was good, wait till you see this, and all of a sudden, all these. I mean, you almost forgot. You almost were like, so into what was happening. We're missing a bunch of people that are back.
Right.
And they revealed them all just well. First it was the Black Panther, and then you get some other people, and
Falcon,
Spider-Man swings in, and it's Falcon, and Bucky's back and everything, and it was that was, and the music was going nuts. That was a great cinematic moment too, because there was a lot of cheering going on in the theater at that moment.
And then there was, is that everyone? What, you want more?
That was great.
Which is a great, again, it's sort of a fourth wall breaking to the audience. Like, this is everybody. This is that. You couldn't possibly get more. Well, but who we didn't get Vision because of the stone. Because the stone got pulled from him. Who else don't we? Who else is not back?
Natasha, obviously.
Natasha. Yep. And we'll talk. I want to talk about her in a second.
Yeah, we don't have the OG Gamora.
Right.
Yeah,
that's right. So interesting. So that moment when they come back, when they all come through, I mean, there's a lot of great moments in that battle, but it's a lot of battle. So, quips and, turns and things like that. We have Tony's snap. Let's talk about, I want to go back and talk about some of the sacrifices in addition. So let's talk about Vormir, Black Widow, Hawkeye, and that moment with the Red Skull, with just like Thanos and Gamora, there has to be a sacrifice. And they kind of go back and forth. Like, no, it needs to be me. No, I need to be the one. And they fight over it, in fact.
That was a greatly done scene by those two actors. The back and forth and the pain on their faces and literally trying to fight each other to get over the cliff first.
Right.
So their friendship, it was really nice that you had those two together and their friendship ending that way. And really, it happened, when everyone thinks about it, he had a family to go back to. She needed this. She needed to, give herself like this. And so it was a redemption. Was satisfying in that sense.
Yeah. It was a redemption for her. She didn't have a family to go back to like he did. I mean, she might have had Bruce, I suppose, that sort of thing. But there was hints of that in other movies. But yeah, she knew that if they were successful, Clint's family would be there waiting for him. So yeah.
That was a great scene.
Yeah. And it was, and her death was felt, it was a good, kick in the face, at that portion of the film, because everyone gets back and everyone's oh, okay, we got the stones and we're going to do this. And then she's not there. And then, after Hulk snaps, he admits he tried to bring her back, but he couldn't. And, it's, and then obviously, going into the film, everyone was having their predictions of who's going to die and who's not. And, I don't think a lot of people thought she would die because her movie had been announced at that time. And it wasn't known if it was going to be a prequel, or I don't think it was known if it was going to be a prequel by that time. So, it was, it was shocking. And the scene itself, like you said, it was greatly done, because until that very last moment, you didn't know who was going to do it.
Right. You didn't know who would come out of that. Yeah.
Yeah. It was great.
And it could have been either. So that was a good moment. So after the battle, do you want to go to after the battle? I think because I'm not sure that much more needs to be said about the exact snap. I mean, unless there is something you need to get from Tony's snap. Is there more to that we need to talk about?
As far as the leading up to the snap or the snap itself?
Yeah, I mean, just leading up to it and the snap itself. Is there anything you want to say about that?
I would just say, right before Tony, does what he has to do, Scarlet Witch almost does it herself.
That's true.
She showed her power. I mean, obviously Captain Marvel, we knew that she would be almost equally matched with Thanos, but Scarlet Witch, almost got the job done herself. And it's and speaking of not seeing Vision, it's going to be interesting to see that TV show. WandaVision, once it comes out, that looks wild. But and then obviously the snap itself. I've never cried more in a movie in my life.
She really showed her power with how she was taking on Thanos one-on-one. But then when Thanos delivers his inevitable comment again, and he says, "I am Iron Man," which is a callback to I think the first movie.
The first movie.
And he does that, and Pepper being there and being okay with knowing he had to do this, and this was the risk. Not darn you, Tony, but you can rest now.
What was interesting about that line, the I am Iron Man line, it was not written. It was improvised.
Really?
It was an ad-lib in the first movie.
Oh, it was so great. He improvised his last line, just like he improvised most of the other lines.
It was an ad-lib. Yeah, it was an ad-lib in the first movie, and it was an ad-lib in the last movie, because it was actually during reshoots. When they originally, how it was written in the script was he was just going to look at Thanos and just snap, and no words were going to be said.
Because that's Robert Downey Jr., right?
Yeah, exactly.
He was. No one else could have been Iron Man. No one else.
But to that point though, after he does that snap, normally when you have a character, I mean, again, he's in almost every MCU film, whether he's in it for a little bit or not, or at least mentioned, he's in all 23 movies basically, and for him not to have those dying last words. it's like I thought that was a great choice because usually you can drag it out like, oh, Pepper, I love you, and Peter, you're the new leader of the Avengers now. Like it was like for a guy who just talks so much, his last moments were completely, silent, and you just saw the look on his face, those brief moments of consciousness that he had at the end. You saw like how those tender looks to Pepper and like to Rhodey and to Peter. That's all you needed,
Yeah, that's true. That is amazing that the two lines were ad-libbed in. I mean, just and become so emblematic of the whole sweep of the Infinity Saga, really.
Dom, you could put together a whole podcast we could do on iconic movie lines that were ad-libbed. There's so many of them.
Oh yeah.
We every time we do a Bill Murray movie, we talk about that.
Yeah.
We've done several of those. All right, so let's move to the after the action. There's Tony's funeral, which is fairly straightforward. We see everybody there, including
the most expensive cinematic shot in movie history. I mean, you have all those actors in one place.
Yes, that's true.
If you added up their salaries, that's the highest price tag for sure.
Well, it also included the kid from from Iron Man 3.
Yeah.
That he saw that in the garage, that helped him in the garage when he was
that was
stuck
a great
there.
touch. Probably the cheapest actor to get there, but yeah.
So there's that, and there's those scenes of like Peter going to school, seeing his buddy who also got snapped out. Obviously, they're both 5 years younger than everybody else. I'm trying to think of other bits of that, and then we get to Steve taking the stones back. And he's going to be gone for 5 seconds, but Bucky knows. Like, there's a moment between Bucky and Steve that Bucky knows that Steve's not coming back, and so he goes, doesn't come back, and they see him sitting as an old man. Now, given that he's Steve Rogers, who's he'll be 100 and something years old by this point, but he still looks like he's 80. He still is obviously aging slower.
Right.
But it's interesting choice that they had him finally get what he always wanted, was that ability to go back and see Peggy, spend life with her, and then he hands the shield over to Falcon, which is an interesting choice.
Yeah, instead of Bucky, that I was surprised.
Well, I wonder, given the new series.
I know, right? Yeah. But yeah, I think again, the payoff for his character, like you said, if you were gonna guess or go the predictive route, like he would have probably been the one to sacrifice himself, no problem, and lay his life on the line. And again, and it that line that pays off. It really pays off when I believe was it in Civil War? It might have been in a film before that, where Steve tells Tony, like, you're not the one that was willing to make the sacrifice play.
Right.
Yeah. And Tony ends up being the one that does, obviously. But, and then, Steve, you thought like he moved on, from Margaret. And, but as we saw in the film, like he's still looking at the compass with her picture, and,
yep.
He has that
Caesar
moment.
in 1970.
Yeah, Caesar in 1970, and
she looks pretty good for in 1970.
Yeah,
being 30 years older. Yeah,
yeah, she's a lot older.
Yeah. I think all they did was like put a few like gray streaks in it.
Yeah, she aged pretty well too.
Yeah.
Do you think that they were like, even though the actor who plays Steve, what's his name?
Chris Evans.
Chris Evans. Yeah. One of the Chris's. And it was great that Loki got one more Chris Evans imitation in there at the end. Like, what is with this guy? That was awesome. But anyway, do you think they're thinking, well, maybe we can like go back and do some, how Steve and Peggy, lived, a movie possibility there, or a TV show?
Interesting. Captain America in the 40s.
Captain America in the 40s with Peggy, the beginning of S.H.I.E.L.D. I don't know. There's a lot of possibilities there.
I feel like, I feel like that he probably lived a life, with little to no, adventure.
I think that's what that's where they want to leave it. but they can always ruin it,
Yeah,
yeah, exactly.
It's kind of like a Godfather 3 moment. I try to get out and they keep pulling me back in.
Well, they are doing that. They are doing that What If animated series, and I know for one of the episodes, it's what if Peggy Carter was Captain America.
Oh wow, that's weird.
They're doing that. So
interesting.
Yeah,
but she's British. She can't be Captain America.
Yeah, she should be Captain Britain or something like that.
Oh, okay.
That is one of the episodes. It was a comic too. The What If series was a comic, so they do a lot of fun stuff like that.
So a few last wrap up things. The future. What about Gamora? Is she stick around? She one of the Guardians? What do you think? Does she fly off with Star-Lord and the rest?
Well, I think we have that. Yeah, you have like that scene at the end where Star-Lord is looking for her.
Yeah.
So I think that's probably something they'll definitely play on in Guardians 3. We know that movie is confirmed, and we know James Gunn has completed the script, and now that he's done with Suicide Squad, he's going to be whenever this quarantine thing's over, they're going to get into production for Guardians 3. So she's such a major part of that story. I think that's definitely going to be a part of that film. So
is Thor going to be in it?
That's
a good question.
I would guess so, but nothing's been confirmed. Obviously,
that'd be so great.
Yeah, but
him and Pines are so great together. I'd love to see that.
But I believe I might be wrong, but I believe in an interview Taika did say that the Guardians will appear in Love and Thunder, the next Thor movie. So
and that's going to be out first. Yeah.
So there probably will be some. They're at least going to be in that film, but maybe it'll bleed into the Guardians film as well.
It should mention the upcoming series that have been announced that they're going to make. So Falcon and the Winter Soldier. So that's going to probably be about how Falcon and Bucky and I can't remember Falcon's name. How they kind of become Captain America. One of them becomes the new Captain America, I think.
Well, it's been confirmed that there's a character called U.S. Agent. So it's really going to be, it's not going to be a battle between Bucky and Falcon of who's going to have the mantle. It's very obviously Falcon. Captain America was like,
this is your shield.
This is your shield, and Bucky, obviously did not budge. I think Bucky is happy being who he is. But there is a character from the comics that is going to be in the series called U.S. Agent, because there's going to be a battle between the government. It's like, hey, wait a second. We don't want you to be Captain America. We want this guy to be Captain America.
Oh, okay.
And then but there's something, obviously.
Boy, that's a different idea.
I know, right?
The government gets involved.
That's we know that's going to be a big part of the storyline.
Okay. Right. WandaVision, it will have Wanda and Vision in it, but this is going to be a weird one. It's probably going to be like the Legion.
I know, right?
Weird along those lines. The TV show Legion. There's going to be a Loki series with Tom Hiddleston. No one knows really what that one's about, so that'll be interesting. Because Loki's another one who's dead.
Yeah, it's basically going to be the Loki that we see obviously from 2012 that gets away with the
Tesseract.
Yeah, the Tesseract, and it's going to be him going through history on different adventures and affecting real actual historical events.
And it says it'll tie in with Doctor Strange and the Multiverse of Madness, the second Doctor Strange movie. So that'll be interesting. You mentioned What If. There's going to be a Hawkeye series with Clint Barton starring Jeremy Renner, which should be good. I look forward to that. Ms. Marvel, Kamala Khan.
Mm-hmm.
I'm only slightly familiar with it. That's not Captain Marvel,
not
right?
Captain Marvel. Yeah, no, yeah.
But they're making another Captain Marvel in the works.
Yeah, Captain Marvel 2. Yeah, is confirmed as well.
Yep.
And I just read the other day that Secret Invasion will probably be the storyline they go with for Captain Marvel 2, which is a very famous comic book storyline that not only that spanned like for, I think 5 years, that one storyline, and they always revisit it as comics do. But it's basically as we see in the first Captain Marvel movie, how now I'm forgetting what the aliens are called that can shapeshift.
The Chitauri?
No, not Chitauri. The name is escaping me now. But anyway, it's gonna deal with those aliens taking the form of people that we know and causing mayhem.
Interesting,
like a bunch of Lokis. Yeah. What about the second Avengers? Like, with Spider-Man, and are they talking about doing one of those?
There's talk, but there's no confirmation of a Avengers movie. But right. I mean, the rumor mill is like, it looks like they're leading up to another, like a new Avengers or a young Avengers type film. But yeah, nothing's been confirmed for that yet.
There's a Moon Knight movie, which is fascinating that they're digging deep to get Moon Knight in some, which is basically Marvel's Batman, essentially. And then She-Hulk, which should be interesting to see her showing up. Jane Foster in Mighty Thor.
Yes.
The female Thor character
in Love and Thunder. Yeah. Well, one of the again going back to the comics, one of the best Thor comic runs is the Lady Thor run with Jane's character becoming Thor. It's a very. I mean, I don't know how much they're going to take from it because I know the movies really kind of do their own thing. They just kind of take bits and pieces, but in that film, and I mean not film, that comic storyline, Jane becomes Thor. But she's also struggling with cancer, and kind of like the consequence of being Thor, if she does chemo, she will lose the power. So it's like for the greater good, she's kind of like she's Thor and fighting as Thor, but she's not being able to have her cancer treatment. So it's a great comic run if anyone wants to get into the comics.
Is the movie going to have Natalie Portman come back or something else?
Yeah.
Awesome.
And of course, Black Panther 2 is on the books and coming out. And these are all as they call it, Phase 4. We've had 3
Wakanda
phases.
Forever.
Yeah, Wakanda Forever. Yes. All right, so we should wrap things up. Any last notes on Endgame before we go to our Endgame?
It was just again. It was really, they pulled off something really, really well done. It was so many things could have went wrong, like with Nebula informing Thanos what was going on, and it didn't. They had great actors and great writers and great directors, and it all came together. And these last 2 movies were worthy of being the wrap up this act. Well said.
Yeah, exactly. I'll echo all of that. This is something this is a once in a lifetime type of film event. There's one in many lifetimes, probably. We haven't seen anything like it before. So it's going to be appreciated for a very long time, and it'll be hard to imitate. And it'll be interesting to see how Marvel, can see how they can recreate that success if possible.
Yep. And no one but Disney could have done it.
Right.
All right. So let's wrap it up there. We'd like to take a moment before we go to thank our patrons, of course, who make it possible for us to create the secrets of movies and TV shows, including this time Matt and Erica, Kevin, Harrison, Dina, and George. Their generous donations at sqpn.com/give make it possible for us to continue the secrets of movies and TV shows and all the shows we do at StarQuest. You can join them by visiting sqpn.com/give. So that's it from us. What do you think of Avengers Endgame? Did you have any thoughts? Thoughts on what we had to say or things that we couldn't possibly have time to cover? Let us know by going to sqpn.com/secrets or the StarQuest Facebook page at facebook.com/StarQuestMedia or by sending an email to secrets@sqpn.com. Until next time, Mike Denz, thank you for joining me and sharing the secrets of Avengers Endgame.
Had a great time. Thank you.
Andrew Hermiz, thank you as well.
As always, I'll talk about this movie whenever you want.
And once again, I'm Dom Bettinelli. Thank you for listening to the secrets of movies and TV shows on StarQuest.